My very first nightmare, a dream journal story. Chapter 8. Pull yourself together. As the wave of victory ebbed, I watched how the various versions of myself behaved around one another. Some were working together, others made a point to ignore one another, and a few were at each other's throats. Then from the pits below a rumble began, a noise of dread, despair, and a herald of pain. The stone beneath me shuddered and quaked as the sound of something large came nearer and nearer. The beast crouched low and had a fearful look in his eye. The archer stopped rolling his coin from knuckle to knuckle, while the armoured assaulter stood with his legs wide apart, bracing himself for anything that may come. I saw the hand of the blade master move to the hilt of his sword. He was not his usual calm. A worried expression crossed his face momentarily, followed quickly by his ice-cold demeanour of arrogant determination. The stage was set as the waved walls of the citrine circle phased and shifted holographically to scenes of the elements themselves. Fire, earth, water, and air split equally into 4 parts. I looked out into each of the 4 distinct corners of the battlefield and realized they each contained an elemental dragon seated upon a throne. 8 powerful eyes bore down upon me. My crew of allies were ready for battle, but in this instance, a different approach would win victory. I breathed in and drew all my allies and their opposites within. I grew stronger as I understood the different parts that made up my own being, and then I breathed out. My clothes had changed, replaced by a liquid armor that bent and shifted with each movement I made. It could not be pierced, nor burned, or rusted, crushed, or frozen. It would adapt to whatever situation it was given and repel in a befitting fashion as long as I kept my focus. A spirit sword made of tempered gold and laced with titanium materialized in my left hand, then a soul shield that wore the 4 elements in my right. I felt truly invincible and beckoned the bravest dragon to approach. The dragons of air and fire leapt from their perches, blasting me with accelerated flame. I dodged the flames licking at my heels, felt the searing heat of the bright blue flames, and knew I was far from invincible. These dragons were more powerful than me, and when they worked together, they were the invincible ones. I battled against steam, fiery earthquakes, ice storms, whirlwinds, firestorms, mudslides, volcanic eruptions, and hurricanes. I shielded and dodged, leapt and ducked, constantly looking for the opening, the soft spot to drive home a killing blow. I knew once one fell, they all shall fall. I enchanted my sword and headed straight for the water leviathan. Flames encompassed my hand and the blade. I flew quickly, directly for his center, having to dodge mid-air shards of ice he threw at me. I teleported, changed my enchantment to molten earth, and slammed my blade down into the unsuspecting spine of the air dragon. He stiffened, and around him the other dragons roared in a deafening howl of pain. His great form fell to the ground with a dead thump, and he lay paralyzed upon the floor. I sprinted to his side, and with a clean blow removed his head. Throwing my shield aside, I plunged my arm into the severed spine of the fallen beast and grabbed hold of his brainstem. I had a strange sensation of our minds melding together and seeing with 4 eyes at once. Luckily, I regained my wits before the spiked, rocky tail of the earth dragon came down upon me. I held up the head of the air dragon and let loose a blast of wind that made him rear up to reveal the weak parts beneath the scales of his chest. I threw my blade as hard as I could, directly at his heart, using my mind to guide it as I did so. It landed true in his heart, and once more the remaining dragons roared in anguish and mentally I returned the sword to my left hand. From this dragon I took the tail. With a slice of my blade formed of air, I cleanly removed it. I grabbed the base of his tail with the mouth of the air dragon and used it as a whip to catch the fire dragon mid-flight. I slammed him against the ground, then hurled him into the sea at the feet of the water Leviathan, then dove in after him, using the air blast from the dragon's head to propel me and cover my back from the pursuing Leviathan. I cut a slit in his back and entered his body cavity, slipping and sliding past bones and cartilage. I had to leave the head of the dragon outside, and my sword was stuck fast in his ribs. I had reached out with my right arm, feeling the pulse of his heart to be close. The dragon tensed and flexed, basically trying to crush and suffocate me, and I was close to death, but forced myself forward, pulling on an artery to get ahead. It was then I felt his heart, and as burning hot as it was, the surrounding water dampened it enough to wrap my hand around it and squeeze. I twisted and ripped it from his chest, and around me waves of pain erupted everywhere, and after a lot of twitching, he was dead. There was one problem though. I was stuck inside this dragon, sinking to the bottom of the ocean. I used ice magic and began to freeze the tissue around me, then smashed my way out, retrieving my sword and claiming another head trophy. The Leviathan caught me by surprise, hitting me from behind at supernatural speed, then clamping his jaws around my waist and arms. I dropped the fire dragon's head, but held tight to my spirit sword. I then peered into his eye that locked with mine, and I saw the tiniest shimmer of fear. I thought of the electric eel and conducted a lightning bolt through myself into the Leviathan. He tensed and shuddered in response to this, and a canine pierced my gut, but my sword arm was freed. The dragon's eye widened as he saw me draw my arm back, and then closed as I thrust it through his eye into his brain. He went limp and let go, sinking into the abyss below. Yet the danger was not over. Sharks and giant crocodiles came to feed upon the dragon's lifeless body, and knowing I was wounded, it would be a matter of time before they came after me. I swam as best I could, sword sheathed upon my back. The surface seemed further than I could last, and though I could breathe underwater, I was drowning still from the pressure and depth. I forced the last of my strength into a beam of light that superheated the water, making a column of steam swirl upwards, and upon this flow I rose to the surface. I teleported ashore once I could see it. I lay there, breathing heavily, watching the blood drain from the hole in my stomach, knowing it would be a long and painful death. I faded in and out of consciousness. When I opened my eyes, I saw the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She was healing me, comforting me. She helped me up, and I realized she was an angel, one of those who had sung to me earlier as she flew high above, watching my struggle. In a haze of white light, she dematerialized, and I stood fully myself once more. To be continued in Chapter 9, Death is Only the Beginning. Thanks for watching.